I wanted to talk about an article about 6 years of the gender war written by Sarah Ditum. And Sarah's been quite eloquent in the last couple of years about the links between biology and inequality. And I wanted to talk about the title of that article, 6 years of the gender war. And that tells you when this started for Sarah, when her turf was upset by trans activists. And that was 6 years ago. And the reason that the New Statesman and the Guardian became turf for the gender war was because they let this rip. Because they just spent 2 years triangulating on austerity actually rolling back equality for women. And all the systems that we just had to fight for recognition of, our safeguarding systems and all these systems, they had already been decimated by then for 2 years. Now, I've tried to keep my mouth shut, but I'm not going to. So the women who caused this, women like Sarah Ditum and Helen Lewis and Karen and Gala Smith, no, they didn't mean to cause it. Karen and Gala Smith did not mean to actively prevent the only time a politician mentioned mothers in 6 years of austerity. 100,000 people are still dead. But she did not mean to be the first person, and we all understand that. But in order for Karen and Sarah and Helen Lewis to capitalise on this, they've re-marginalised women and pushed them to the edges, because they have media power. Now, Sarah, you did know that equality had been rolled back for 2 years by the time, because I remember when you and your friend Naomi were explaining that you were feminists, and Naomi wrote an argument about the invisibility of vaginas in an article about Vagina Fresh. I can't remember what the fucking product was. And I remember saying, you both knew fine well that I was a mum on housing benefit. You know, I remember saying, you know, actually that article's really important because it's about the invisibility of women. And then you and Naomi told me that not all women were breeders. Great. You know, one of the editors at the New Statesman was actively putting the children of women at risk of violence if they contributed poverty porn that they were asked to contribute about austerity. The reason that your turf war started 6 years ago, Sarah, was because the publications that you had spent 2 years triangulating on austerity. Women have just stood up all across the country and are still doing so. And the same women who sold austerity are now wanting this to be seen as something that it's not. The reason that the turf wars started, Sarah, was because the publications you work for had just actively assisted with rolling back actual equality for women. The reason Mehdi Hassan and Helen Lewis had to do that to female writers was because Labour were not opposing austerity. And the reason you think the turf war started 6 years ago is because you don't know that you're writing for the fucking publications who caused it. This is not harmless. You sat in a chat room with women who were being starved nearly to death. You assisted in selling narratives where women lost their children. Those children will not be brought back. The reason we have to fight for these systems, for recognition of these systems, is that you and your peers assisted. Karen and Gala Smith is the one woman in the country who, when a politician tried to discuss equality being rolled back, she demanded that that didn't happen again. You and your friends were on Twitter telling women that not all women are breeders, while your newspaper prevented discussion of this. The reason turf wars began was because you elevated trans rights activists so that they completely threatened to finish the job of what Austerity had done. And while I am fucking grateful at you and Helen Lewis, great for belatedly discovering that biology and inequality are mixed, actually, you could reflect on the fact that your papers sold equality being rolled back, that women died and lost their fucking children directly because of you and your friends. Too many to count. I refuse to show solidarity with psychopaths like you.